Okay, I think we have a tight time schedule and a long program ahead of us. So welcome all, and thank you for joining us today for what we hope will be a truly global conversation, and it looks like that way. So launched from the Responsible Digital Leadership Project at the Center for Human Rights and International Justice at Stanford University in collaboration with California Polytechnic State University, Gaia seeks to enable global inclusive dialogues about the risks and benefits of AI and advanced technologies. And that's why we are so excited to launch today's meeting from and in collaboration and partnership with Strathmore University in Nairobi. Over the past 2 years, we have had the privilege of collaborating with more than 100 advanced level students from all corners of the world in more than 20 universities and far more countries than that.
And all the students that we work with bring very diverse disciplinary, cultural, and geopolitical perspectives to the discussions that we have about the opportunities and the risks related to the use of technology. All of these students, as well as the industry and the government leaders who have met with us over these past years, have given their time and their expertise to the project, and we want to thank all of you for that.
So it is our firm belief that we obviously need to use technology in education and finance, as well as in other of the big challenges, or in solving other of the big challenges ahead of us. And that has been the focus of our program, and is the focus of our global conversation today. But in order to make full use of technology and really leverage the benefits, we need to understand the risks and promote a culture of responsible digital leadership. And that is what our project is about.
And today we're going to present research from our second global cohort and hear from global and cross-sector thought leaders on the ethical and social impacts of technology use in the education and financial sectors and more broadly. But before we do that, we really want to thank our two cohorts of Gaia scholars, the speakers who've all joined us here today, and our many collaborators, including the Strathmore University Business School, who's been a very valued partner in this work and who is co-hosting this event with us today.
And therefore, it is my great honor and privilege to introduce the Executive Dean of Strathmore Business School, Shashank Wanke, who will say a few words before we listen to a special address from the U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, Mrs. Meg Whitman. Please.
Sorry, our VC, Dr. Vincent, will invite also the VC of Strathmore who has joined us. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for correcting me.
Yeah, thank you, Soren. I had met the group earlier, and our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Vincent Ogutu, is here. So I'll be very brief in my very brief remarks regarding this wonderful initiative.
We lost sound.
Sorry, yes, I was muted. I'm still getting used to what we used to do often under the COVID-19 pandemic, that is online. But I just was saying that I'm extremely delighted on behalf of Strathmore University and Strathmore Business School to welcome all of you, honorable guests, distinguished leaders, and ladies and gentlemen, to this second global conversation on learning across domains in relation to ethical risks and social impacts of artificial intelligence and advanced technology. And for me, it is really an honor as host in partnership with Stanford University and California Polytechnic State University, in collaboration, acknowledge that this global conversation provides an opportunity for researchers, industry professionals, and government representatives to gather and share their work related to ethical risks and social impacts of AI and advanced technology, with special focus on barriers for access to capital and education, as well as how we may leverage technology as a means of ensuring equitable access. Now, for us here at Strathmore and in the business school, the whole idea of ethical risks and social impacts are two very important themes to us, because part of our agenda is to transform society, and we're very clear on that. And we know that cannot be done without addressing the ethics of doing business, the ethics of engaging with technologies, but also the second aspect of social impacts of artificial intelligence is very important to us, because again, we recognize that the human person has different social settings, but what remains is the dignity of that human person. Irrespective of whatever technologies are developed, we always need to remember that the human person is at the center of every initiative that we should be talking about in development, in the development narrative. So these two are very close to our hearts. And I just want to mention very briefly that this global conversation is situated within the Gaia project, which was launched from the Center for Human Rights and International Justice at Stanford University in March 2021. So we are well our way into the third year of this conversation. And this Gaia project brings together international and multidisciplinary PhD and advanced level scholars from over 25 countries around the world to engage in the collaborative study of these ethical dilemmas associated with technology use in the financial and education sectors. Now, we are very delighted because some of our own scholars here at Strathmore have been part of this particular project. And in fact, we have, I suspect, some of our PhD staff attending here. For example, Dr. John Lokuru and Mr. Martin Bayer are just two of the people I can mention, but there are also others. And we are very delighted that we are part of this conversation. Lessons we have learned since the project started is the importance of co-creating concrete learning tools and knowledge building that is pertinent to financial industry professionals and industry organizations. And some of these findings have even been beneficial to various institutions in the region and including in our own country. We hope that at the end of this conversation, we'll be able to answer the questions which Gaia has given to all of us, and which are: what are the impact, risks, and opportunities of technology use in the financial education sectors? How can we leverage technology to ensure access to capital and learning for equitable development? And how can academia, industry, and governing bodies work together to identify and respond to risks in a timely and effective manner, and so that we may minimize the development of ideological and strategic silos in our responses? The whole idea of the fact that we work in an ecosystem, a global ecosystem for that matter, which includes different players from the different sectors, academia, government, and industry, is so important to us. And as an entrepreneurial university, collaborating with our partners at Stanford, we are most delighted to welcome you again to this conversation. Thank you very much. And may I now allow our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Vincent Ogutu, to say a few words after my very brief remarks. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Vincent, Karibu.
Thank you, Caesar. Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's afternoon here in Kenya. It might be some other time wherever you are in Hong Kong or in the US and other parts of the world. But this is just to welcome you again to Strathmore. We're very excited about being part of this conversation for several reasons. One, because it is the conversation worldwide. Everyone's wondering what's going to happen next with artificial intelligence and how much power it should have, what will it do, what can it do. And then in our part, in our case, in Africa, we're excited about it for several reasons. As you know, there are different pathways you can take to develop. And the West took the path that it followed with the Industrial Revolution, and it went through all the steps. But Africa seems to be leapfrogging over some of those steps. So a lot of Africans never had a landline in their house. So they just leapfrogged and went straight to cell phones. And that is happening more and more in terms of how we experience the world and the economy of the world. And so in Africa, we are getting more and more digitalized. In many ways, Kenya is one of the most advanced countries in fintech. And then you bring in artificial intelligence into the mix. And we are very likely to, again, just jump in headlong. But this time, and here's where Africa comes in, people might not quite know what they're jumping into. Right now in Strathmore, we have a conference going on of data protection officers from around the region. So the heads of data protection for Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Nigeria are here with partners from the European Union, especially GIZ. And the main conversation is really the rights that people have, including especially their digital rights. And people have no idea. So you're trying to protect somebody who doesn't even know that they have rights that are worth protecting. So now imagine what happens when you go headlong into artificial intelligence and people are not even aware of what their rights are, not even aware of how they could be manipulated and how they could be transformed. And that's the part that concerns us the most. So if you transform people, influence them, make them change their values and their identities, and they're just like innocent bystanders being carried along, then it's something that we as the pioneers of artificial intelligence and the ethics of artificial intelligence should be thinking about and figuring out. And we need to work together because it is complex. You have different ethical codes in different parts of the world. So how is this going to work? This morning, we had a training from the data protection officer, the deputy data protection officer of Kenya, to my senior leaders in the university. And we were looking at how are we going to transfer knowledge from one side to the other. So when you transfer data from one side to the other, does the country you're transferring rights to have the same safeguards as the country you're transferring from? How do these two different countries mesh when it comes to transferring data? And I'm looking at it from an ethical perspective. You're interacting with different ethical codes. How do they mesh together? How do they communicate? Can I, for instance, flick a switch and say, okay, Kenyan ethical codes apply, and I want an environment that takes into consideration my Kenyan values and beliefs and identity, and that is respectful of that and is not going to overly push me into a different code of conduct, and will even send me an alert that you're now moving into something that potentially conflicts with what you believe in. I mean, transparency was one of the big things we talked about when we were talking about data protection this morning. Do I know what's going on? Am I aware of what I'm being requested and what the repercussions are of my giving that information or my engaging in this dialogue? So there are so many interesting things worth looking at. But what's for sure is we are in a global environment. There's a serious risk of people digging their heels in and saying, we're retreating into our caves because it's safer there and we know what's happening. And in many ways, the world is becoming closed in itself. Many countries are deciding to close out the world and to just stay in their own safe areas. This is something that we think is retrogressive. We've come so far because of globalization. So what we now need to do is just address the issues of how do we engage, how do so many different people